Welcome to the Riverdale Minyan Parent Parsha series. I hope everybody had a wonderful, meaningful Simchat Torah and Shmini Atzeret. We're starting off Parshat Bereishit and Sefer Bereishit with a new initiative. It's called the Parent Parsha series, but we hope that everybody, regardless of family demographic, family makeup, will be able to find something meaningful out of this series. So it has three parts to it. Each part is short so that you feel like you can watch it if you just have 5 minutes, if you just have 10 minutes, and get a little bit out of it. So each week we're hoping to have one short, quick parenting tip that we all could use a friendly reminder about. We can put in our back pocket. We can use it during the week. We can use it on Shabbat. The next part is a short Parsha idea for the table with thoughtful, potentially, questions that you could bring to your table. You can change them. You could forget about them. You can come up with your own. We're sharing one with you that you might be able to use with the people at your Shabbat table, regardless of age. And the final idea is some fun Parsha dessert food activity that can be done either before Shabbat or on Shabbat, or with your kids, or without your kids, whatever works best for your family. And again, like I mentioned last week, all of this is about knowing yourself, knowing your kids, and knowing what works best for your family. The parenting tip on the go that I wanted to share this week follows the theme actually of Sefer Bereishit. It says on day one, what is coming next? So we know from Simchat Torah that the part that we read in Sefer Bereishit and the kickoff is that there is a synopsis of what Hashem created on each day. And there is an order, there is a seder. On day one, Hashem did this, and then Hashem saw that it was good, and then moved on to day two. So one thing that we know about that is critical when it comes to kids is having a schedule, having a routine. And even if the schedule and the routine shifts from time to time, as it often does, because life doesn't always go completely linear and is not exactly the same from one moment to the next, what we do know is that helping children anticipate for what is coming next, irregardless of actually age, really can help kids remain in a much more calm, even-tempered place. That a lot of times kids feel overwhelmed when they don't know what's coming next. And so sometimes those tantrums, those acting out, you're not sure what's happening, that meltdown moment in whatever it looks like, sometimes meltdown in teenagers can be very different than a meltdown in a preteen, in a toddler, in an infant. And so one of the things we do like to think about is helping kids to develop a sense of routine, a sense of schedule, a sense of what's coming next, and whether that has to do with your routine and schedule for them during the week, or the routine and schedule of Shabbat. Sometimes people like having a visual, sometimes kids like having a visual. If we walk into a classroom, when we used to do that, you might notice that that's one of the main things that teachers have on the board, that schedule. Here's what's coming first, here's what's coming next. And sometimes kids need that to know that they don't have to worry that they're not going to get a recess. They don't have to worry that they're not going to get a lunch or a snack. They can know what's coming first, what's coming second, and what's coming next. And we can implement that in our own homes in a variety of different ways, whether it's a schedule on the wall, whether it's just orally letting the kids know, hey, here's the plan for the day. And also remembering that we want to also encourage some amount of flexibility, but this is just one principle, right? So schedule, routine, whether it's for ourselves, for our kids, and really helping them to know, here's what's on first, here's what's on second, here's what's coming next, whether it's Shabbat, whether it's Sunday, whether it's the weekday. And I think that actually dovetails nicely into potentially the idea that I wanted to share with you today. This section I'm calling a thought for your table. And one of the things that I noticed while I was looking at the Parsha, maybe a lot of other people already noticed this and I'm late to the game, is that at the end of each day of creation, it says, Vayi'er, Vayiboker, Yom HaShishi. We know that. We just talked about that pattern, that schedule, that routine. But one of the things that I noticed is that statement does not exist by Shabbat. It doesn't say Vahi'erev, Vahiboker, Yom HaShabbat, or Vahi'erev, Vahiboker, Yom HaShvi'i. Instead, what it actually says is Vahi'erev, Vahiboker, Yom HaShishi, and then it goes straight into the creation of Shabbat. And then it finishes by saying, Vayivarech Elokim et Yom Hashvi'i, Hashem blessed the seventh day, Vayikadesh Oto, He made it holy, Kivosh Shabbat, Mikol Melachto Asher Bara Elohim Lasot. We were supposed to rest from all the work that was done on that day. And one of the things that the Kli Yakar points out, he picks up on this. The Kli Yakar was written between 1598 and 1602. We think this particular piece was completed around 1602. It was published in 1602. Rav Shlomo Ephraim of Lunjitz in Galicia. I'm noticing there was a little bit of a spelling error, so you got to add a Z there. And one of the things is that he points this out. He says, why is it that unlike Shabbat, the other days have Vayevei Boker, but why not Shabbat? He says, Lefi shebechol hayamim halayla zman menucha v'haboker zman hamelacha. And one of the things that he points out is that according to all the other days, that routine, that schedule, the nighttime is delineated as a time for rest, and the beginning of the day is delineated as a time for work. Aval Yom HaShabbat, but what about Shabbat? Shabbat is different. O kulo menucha, o kulo melacha, im kain ein bo hevdil bein erev levoker, ki mitzat stam melacha kulo menucha. When we think about work from a very colloquial sense, in terms of the work that we do during the weekday, that work in its entirety, whether it's nighttime, whether it's daytime, we don't do any of it on Shabbat. Shabbat is a whole day in and of itself, and everything that we want Shabbat to be about exists Shabbat night, and it also exists Shabbat day. It's kulo menucha and kulo melacha. But what does that mean, kulo melacha? What work are we doing on Shabbat? It says umitzat amal haTorah, but the work that we have to do on Shabbat is the being involved in Torah, learning Torah. Kulo lumelacha ki yom haShabbat nitan la'asok bo b'Torah. That Shabbat was given for us to be involved in Torah. And it reminded me actually of the fact that even though there is an idea that's brought down in the Gemara and was just discussed on the daf yesterday in Gemara Eruvin about this idea that there is great zechut in learning Torah at night, ideally a person should set aside time during their day to learn Torah. That every person has a little bit of time that they put aside that they're able to sit and be amal b'Torah during the week. But that's different on Shabbat. Even our learning of Torah is different on Shabbat. On Shabbat, it's our whole day that we want and our whole night that we can be involved in Torah. And so if we think about it for a second, even the routine of the day has a different shift to it, right? Usually it's nighttime is coming. Perhaps the day is just kind of slowly settling down. We're getting into a bedtime routine. We're getting into a nighttime routine. We're wrapping up the day. But by Shabbat, it's different. We're just amping up our day. We're bringing in the Shabbat queen. We're lighting the candles. We're getting excited about a Friday night dinner. We're getting excited about the Torah that we're going to share at the table, the Torah that we're going to learn. Sometimes on an early Shabbat even, we're able to finish our meal, maybe even put our kids to bed, and sit down and maybe learn a little bit with our older kids, learn a little bit with our spouse, learn a little bit for ourselves. That is a time to be amal b'Torah in a different way than we would have otherwise. V'hagita bo yomam v'layla. We're supposed to be engaged in the Torah all day and all night. And so maybe some questions that you might want to bring to your table that I was thinking about when I read this, to bring it home maybe for all the age ranges that you might find at your table, is what do you look forward to during your school day? What's your routine during the school day? What happens at the beginning of the day? What happens at the end of the day? What do you look forward to during our Shabbat day? What's different on our Shabbat day? Is there something that you really enjoy? Is there something that makes it feel special, makes it feel different? What's different about the routine? And one piece that I also thought was important to pick up on is this idea that learning Torah on Shabbat is our work. And it was interesting to think about the fact that it uses the language of learning Torah as work. What's work about learning Torah? Is Torah supposed to feel like hard work? And it made me think about all the different ways that people learn Torah. Some people learn Torah bi'iyun. They focus on one specific area. And some people learn the breadth of it, right? If we think about people who do the daf yomi, nach yomi, tanach yomi, they're doing a little bit of it. So they're not doing it as in depth, but they're doing more of it. And one of the things that my husband one time pointed out when we were discussing the value of one over the other, and there is no true value of one over the other because it's all Torah learning, was that in Yeshivat Gush Etzion, where he learned, one thing that they talked about a lot is the idea of being able to use all your body to focus in and work really hard to understand one particular piece. And this idea of learning Torah, that we want to really use all of our brain power and all of our energy and all of our focus to focus in on learning Torah, that we're able to use our whole body when we're engaging in Torah. I also think it's a good discussion about the idea of hard work in general, not necessarily just for Torah learning. Is hard work good? Is hard work bad? What will happen to us if we do really hard work? Nothing will happen to us. We will be okay. And thinking about it in terms of distress tolerance, and being able to open up a conversation. When did people feel like they worked really hard at something and they weren't sure they were going to make it? But then they got to the end and they realized like it was okay, and they feel accomplished, and they're stronger because of it. And thinking about work as a muscle, whether that's a physical muscle, an emotional muscle, an academic muscle, and really starting to engage in that conversation at the table. The last idea is something that you can do at your prepare in advance. So when I think about Parsha treats, I think about it in different ways. Do I want it to be fun? Do I want it to be meaningful? Sometimes in our house, we have sneaky cupcakes where I've made different things and the kids have to like guess, oh, what does that have to do with the Parsha? Where was it? Was it in a Rashi? Was it just like pshat? Is it something that maybe is not so obvious or so clear? This obviously, when you get further into the Parshiot, like start thinking Shemot Vayikra, this becomes very easy because it's much harder. So you're going really esoteric. Do I want it to be something that I've done, or do I want it to be something that my kids participated in? So my Kiva said to me yesterday, oh, I want to do Parsha desserts. That's something that he loves being able to get involved in, and thinking about ways that we can make it tricky or have the other kids guess. Sometimes it could be something that I want to do because it's easier for me to do it by myself when I don't have lots of hands in the kitchen, or sometimes I'll do it stepwise. So maybe I'll make the cupcakes by myself, but I'll let the kids decorate them. And partially because I like to do it in stages. So sometimes I'll make something early in the week and then I'll put it in the freezer, which makes it much more manageable and much more doable. I try to give an assortment of different things that people could do. Not everybody has the same skill set. Not everybody enjoys doing the same things. And so I really want this to be something that is reachable for everybody. So I put ribs in there. You have to figure out why ribs. Maybe your kids will recognize, oh yeah, didn't Adam and Chava and ribs and Hashem, like maybe Midrash, Pshat. And so that can be an interesting discussion. For people who are older, it might be an interesting discussion about the story of creation in Parak 1 and versus the second story of creation. Yardana pointed out to me that she was thinking about black and white cookies, and I also saw another person who mentioned black and white cookies. I like black and white cookies because you can buy them. You don't have to make them. They're easy to find, and that could be very fun and exciting. Galaxy popcorn seemed very easy. It looks complicated because there are a lot of colors going on in here. It's actually just chocolate melts that they melted. If you don't have chocolate melts in your house, like most people who have chocolate melts don't have black chocolate melts. So you might decide that you want to take chocolate chip and you're going to melt it and then throw it in a bag. You could take it with popcorn. You could do it with Chex Mix. You could do it with whatever you want. I like the different the edible constellations and the edible rockets, because those are something you could actually do on Shabbat, thinking about your routine, thinking about your schedule. If you know that your kids need an activity around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, this could be a great one. It's easy, it's not particularly messy, and it's a nice, yummy treat. The other ones also were not particularly, they looked fancy, but they weren't necessarily as hard as one might imagine. So you can remember, you can buy a Duncan Hines cake, make it into cupcakes, buy the frosting, put it on there. And I think on the top one, it was just gumballs. So these are just different ideas. I also recommend you could always Google them yourself. Some Earth Day cookies. You can use different concepts. whatever kind of works well for you. So these are some of our ideas. I'll keep you posted as to what we end up making in our house. There was a discussion of yellow meringues for the sun. Different kids had different ideas, and we'll have to see what our bandwidth ends up being this week. But I hope that people will post. I hope that people will share with me. If you need some good recipes, I hope that people will email me. I'm happy to share some recipes, and I look forward to hearing and seeing all the different things that you created this week. Shabbat Shalom.